today about some old bonsai trees that I've known for many, many years. And I want to introduce you to my friend Stephen Kane, who I've known since 1984. And we've done a lot of bonsai together. We used to go collecting in the woods in Wales, collecting beech trees mainly. And we've made a lot of bonsai over the years. Today he's brought some old bonsai friends with him that I've known since the last 30 or more years. And I would like to talk about how these bonsai have developed over that period. Let me begin by showing you this beautiful Cryptomeria. This is a literati of sorts, but it's been created in such a beautiful style. It's still nice after about 34 or 33 years.
Yeah, it is, yeah.
And I will talk about the options for this tree. But let me go to the three maples that we have here, because they are the subject of a lot of interest. Now this is a forest group, and Stephen tells me that when he bought it more than 30 years ago, it was a little group. You can see the original pot. The original pot was only here, and the forest was only a short forest of, was it
24 trees.
24 trees.
Roughly.
About no more than
that high.
Yeah, not even 30 centimeter high. So this was the original height of the forest, 24 trees. Of course, the height is now, this is more like 60 centimeters now, at least. And the trees have become older. Some of the trees have died because if you don't separate the trees, they will eventually go. So this one is already dead, but Stephen is keeping it because it still looks okay. But just earlier on, we took out a dead tree. So it is still looking very nice. And this tree has got many possibilities. You can use this as the front, or you can use this as the front. What I would like to talk about is that because the group is so old, that if you keep pruning them, you get these knobbly bits growing. So you've got to be a bit careful when you have these very old maples. And you notice that some of the branches have become very thick. So with maples, to keep them looking in proportion, you don't want branches which are too thick. Ideally, you want branches which are thin like this to be in proportion to the thickness of the trunk. So we may need to deal with some of these. The point I want to talk about regarding this forest group is that this forest group has been the, I would say, the father or mother of many other maples. If I show you this maple here, this beautiful triple trunk, tell me something about this, Stephen.
That triple trunk was air-layered from something like this. There was this group here, for example, this branch. It was a similar branch to that I air-layered, tiny like this, planted it in a pot and then put it in the soil and left it for 4 or 5 years to develop. And this is what I got out of it. I was lucky with the root structure.
So this is produced in what, 20 years?
Yes.
20 years from a tiny air layering.
Like this.
Thinner than the small finger.
Yeah.
And this is a triple trunk created from that.
It'd be a tiny air layering like this branch here, this little bit from my finger to the top. That's how small it was, and I ended up with this beautiful thing.
And then the other one is this one. As you can see, they are all the same progeny, same green bark, so it is absolutely authentic offspring from these trees.
It started as cutting, hardwood cutting about this big, just a tiny hardwood cutting.
No thicker than a matchstick.
Yep.
The root base is beautiful, and it's just been chopped across. So this is going to form a broom. Maples are not often trained in broom style except for the Kiyohime, but this would make a beautiful broom. And if I can have the red secateurs, please, we will just do a quick prune. Shall I prune it for you?
Yeah, absolutely.
So all you do is go around, give a 1 minute haircut, this is how we will form a nice broom style. And during the growing season, if we keep pruning it, you will be surprised how quickly you can develop a very, very nice broom style tree. Try not to have too many crossing branches. I think sometimes you get a crossing branch depending on what you want to use as the front. This is not so nice as the front, so I think the front is more this way. So this would be nice. This is nice. This is coming in the middle. I may keep it for the time being, but really you don't need that one. So let's take this one out. It's very tempting to keep more branches than you actually need. But since we are almost near to producing a nice broom style, so let's get all the branches in the right place. So with this as the front, you can see the potential for this being a nice broom style tree. I would continue to keep it growing in the flower pot to produce more ramification, and perhaps next year we put it in its bonsai pot. So this is another cutting from tiny branch like this.
It was a tiny branch, probably like this. Absolutely tiny. Grown in a pot for 2 years and then in the garden for about 10 or 15. Not a long time in the garden.
So this age of this tree is about 15 years from a cutting.
Yeah.
15 years from
Yeah,
cutting.
definitely. It was 97, 98. I remember we're doing all these.
So there you are. So this forest group has been the source for many, many bonsai that Steve has created over the years. So it shows what you can achieve by using little cuttings and air layerings from the parent tree.
I mean,
so much for this group of maples. We will now look at the other two trees that Stephen has brought because they are extremely interesting trees. The Japanese call it the nejikan, or the twisted pomegranate. And Stephen tells me that this is a tree I sold him maybe in the late 1980s when I used to import a lot of trees from Japan. And the nejikan has this beautiful twisted trunk, and because pomegranates are not long-lived, the wood is a bit soft, so it does rot, but it continues to live. And because it's hollow, it is a bit wobbly and unstable because the inside of the wood has gone. So the object now is to keep it fairly light and not too heavy, because if it's too heavy, it will make the tree collapse. So the usual pruning, I think, again, we will keep these cuttings. Stephen is very good at making cuttings, so we'll keep these. Although they are hardwood cuttings, they will still root. I know that pomegranates root very easily. And it's got this very beautiful, contorted, almost literati type shape. We will maintain this. I know that's a temptation to keep a lot of this, but for the sake of the tree, I'm going to lighten the load and prune some of this off and let it grow again. I know this comes back very nicely to this side, so I will probably continue to keep this. If I cut it off, it may not have so much character, so I will continue to keep this branch which sweeps back on itself. So I'm just lightening the load so that it's not too heavy, and hopefully it's had its spring haircut, and we will keep it like this. It's planted in quite a large bonsai pot. It could go in a circular pot, it would look very nice, but for now it will grow again. And this tree has double orange flowers, is it?
Yes, very orangey pink,
Orangey pink flowers.
Quite very fluffy.
So this is the nejikan. Now the other tree I want to talk about is a very interesting Cryptomeria. This is a very interesting tree. It's a Cryptomeria japonica, and the variety I think is called Jindai Sugi. The history of this tree is very interesting. When I first came to Herons in 1986, I used to have our friend Dan Barton come to conduct some workshops, and I think Dan Barton and I helped to create this bonsai from ordinary nursery or garden center stock. So this was an upright tree, if I remember right. It was bolt upright like this, growing in a flower pot like this. But to give it character, we decided to create a sort of literati. But the original tree was not as long as this. The original tree was only like 60 centimeter tall. All this has grown over the last 33 years. Beautiful pads have formed, and it's got this beautiful sweep, and it's not strictly a very sparse literati, but it's got that literati character to it. What I wanted to talk about on this tree is the styling. Because it's such a big tree, the weight has pulled it down, and to my mind, this tree would be better replanted in a slightly different position. So I'm just going to prop the tree up to show you what it would look like if we repotted it at this angle. I think if we pot it at this angle, the tree looks better and it doesn't look as if it's collapsing. So these pads have to be pruned. I will show you how to prune these in a minute. With most of these trees, you should always keep an open mind as to which is the front and which is the back. Now this tree would work quite well with this as the front. Nothing wrong with that. It's got a beautiful line and this would work quite well. But if you wanted to, it can also work well with this as the front. But again, we need to prop it up. It's leaning too much. So this is also another possible front. So this is another possible front. Now, if you wanted to be pedantic, this tree has got many, many options. And if I can just bring some plastic bags, we will do the bag trick. Now, what do I mean by the bag trick? The bag trick is a means of helping you to make decisions. As with all bonsai, styling a bonsai gives you many, many options. Not that I'm going to do it to this tree, because this tree looks nice as it is. This tree has got many options. If you wanted to make a small bonsai, you can make just this tree a bonsai, the lower part of this tree. So if you can imagine the tree without all that encumbrance, you can have this as a small bonsai, beautiful line, and that was the tree. You can also make a bonsai with these two pads, this and this. This would also make a beautiful bonsai, not too big and not too heavy. So this is possible as well. That's very beautiful. And of course, if you go higher, you can then, the third option is to use the entire top. To my way of thinking, I would prefer this as the front rather than the other side of the front. Let me turn and show you the other side again. This is the other side. Now, when you use this as the front, you can still get the different options, but not as nice as from the other side. I think the other side was more interesting.
Yeah.
If you wanted to use these two options. First option, just that. Second option is this, and the third option is this. So there you are. And as for pruning the Cryptomeria, they're very, very slow growing. In 1 year, they can only grow that much, and you've got to be very meticulous in pruning it. Because it's so dense, there's a lot of dieback, so you've got to clean the insides. And pruning, I will just bring the scissors and show you how to prune. As with the junipers, don't just shear it across. You need to go into the wood like that and take each individual one out. So this is how you prune the Cryptomerias. Very painstaking process. There are many different types of Japanese Cryptomeria. Some are more loose and lax, some are more dense, but they are beautiful subjects for making bonsai. And again, they grow very easily from cuttings. So if you make cuttings of this, they will grow very easily. So I thought I would show you these examples of my friend Stephen King's trees, because they are example of what a true bonsai enthusiast can achieve with a lot of diligence and patience. And there you are. I hope you've enjoyed this. Thank you, Stephen.
Thank you.